Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of This Week in Cloud Computing. I'm your host, Amanda Coulong, and with me in studio today, I have my co-host, Mark Jeffrey.
Hello, Amanda. Good to see you as always.
Of course. And then we also have to my left here, Matt McNaughton, who is the co-founder of CultureJam.
Hello, Amanda. Hello, Mark.
Yeah, we've got a full house because we also have on the line with us Brett Pyatt, who is the Director of Technical Alliances at Rackspace. How are you, Brett?
Doing wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good to have you. And then we also will have joining us on Skype, Scott Bills, who's the co-founder of Conformity. So there you are. How you doing, Scott?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Wonderful. Glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks. No, happy to be here.
Great. So let's start off, first off, for those of you who are watching online, obviously, it's thisweekincloudcomputing.com. Please also make sure you follow us on Twitter. It's TWiCloudComp. And our hashtag for the show is CloudComp as well. So if you want to include that, we'll be in the chat room and on Twitter. So let's get things going. We have two Austin-based companies, Rackspace and Conformity. And I would like to start off with you, Brett. One thing I'd like to do with the show is to get everyone's definition of cloud computing. It's so huge, and it's there's so many things that it encompasses. So how does Rackspace define cloud computing?
So our view is that cloud computing encompasses anything that you're not having to buy, set up, and manage yourself. So there's this idea that corporations should focus on IT services that are specific to their business, and then find a partner out there in the cloud and pay for all the rest of the stuff on demand in a utility model for what they need, and allow them to better allocate their money towards things that differentiate them and help them build their business.
Now, one term you just used, there are obviously a lot of buzz terms associated with cloud computing as well. What is utility computing?
So utility computing is pay by the hour or by the day or by the month, where you say, I need 1,000 compute resources, and you sign them up, and the provider charges you just like you get charged for your electric bill or your water bill at your house. You would do the same thing to get a computing bill.
Understand. So who really benefits the most, would you say, from your services?
So it's really small to medium business has the biggest benefit because they don't necessarily have the long-term horizon and capital base that larger companies would have to build out and deploy things themselves. Mm-hmm. So where starting up an internet business 10 years ago might have cost you $1 million to get going, right. Now you can have the whole thing up and running for under $100,000.
Wow, under $100,000. I mean, that's something we obviously see in the tech world in general. The startup costs are a lot lower, but you would say cloud computing definitely enables that.
Yeah, it allows you to only have to buy compute as you have subscribers and customers and signups, and you can grow right with them so that your compute costs are really tied to the service you provide your users.
Mm-hmm. So, it sounds like it's wonderful in terms of scalability and being able to, pull in what you need at any given time and then scale back down again so you're not wasting money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Rackspace is pretty interesting, actually, because they started life as a data center, a space to put racks and put your computers. So a traditional data center, and you've made the leap partway to you made the full way to offering cloud offerings. It's redundant, but but you guys were brave enough to cannibalize your own business in a certain respect. You basically were jumping. This was a foreign thing initially for you guys. First of all, how long have you been doing it? I think it's about 2 years, if I remember correctly.
So
go ahead.
Our first foray into cloud was in 2006 with what everyone's referring to now as a platform as a service offering, where you can host a .NET or your typical LAMP stack applications. And then our sort of cloud compute services that everyone's infrastructure as a service, where you get your on-demand servers by the hour and your sort of object file storage out there for images and everything else you need in your web apps, is about 12 to 18 months now that we've been online with those.
I mean, that time frame just shows how new a lot of this is and why there's so much confusion, I think, in the market around cloud computing.
Yeah, and it's growing pretty rapidly. I mean, we're a 12-year-old company. and the cloud is very new to us, and it's already up to 11% of our overall revenue at the end of the last quarter.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's pretty significant.
Excellent. Congrats.
Yeah, Brett, we actually, we kind of moved up the ranks of Rackspace. We started with SliceHost, which is one of your own companies, and then when our needs got bigger, we moved into your now cloud offerings with the MOSA servers that you guys are running now. And so it's really interesting to see us kind of moving through and using the different services that you guys offered, and now really using a lot of the cloud computing
so
services.
Do you guys pay by the hour, or like what does your bill look like? And by that I mean not amount, but
it's like he said, it's a utility bill. It's really, we pay for what we use, and because we're a startup, that changes on a day-to-day basis.
Specifically, is it like by the computing hour? Do you know?
Yeah, it's what is it, Brett? It's not hour. It's really data storage and
it's storage and transfer.
Yeah,
I
transfer.
would think, yeah.
Okay. Is that correct?
And then on the platform service, we have our own sort of compute cycles that are comprised of what the web transaction is. So
right.
We're monitoring. If you have a really well-written web application, every visitor might cost you 1 compute cycle. If you have a web application that is really compute intensive, then maybe every one costs you 10. So this incentivizes people now to really look at how their application performs and optimize that, because they can see the direct savings right away.
Wow.
That's interesting, because that's not true if you have your own data center.
Exactly.
If you write crummy or inefficient code, but it's perfectly serviceable to your end users, but actually it's crummy code.
Right.
You're not going to get penalized, and it's not going to cost you money. Here it actually costs you money.
Yeah.
Or you save money. There's another way to look at it, but that's interesting.
Well, it's great for startups. It means we're writing better apps, so we're forced to at least.
The bottom line now is attached to it. That's good.
Absolutely. Well, let's pull Scott into this discussion a little bit here too. So, Scott, with Conformity, you guys are doing systems management for enterprises.
Yeah, actually, can you tell me a little bit about what Conformity does and sort of run us through what you guys are up to?
And your definition of cloud computing.
Yeah, so let me start with our definition. And Conformity spends the majority of our time in SaaS and the cloud application world. So cloud.
So SaaS, software as a service, basically.
Yeah,
exactly. So Salesforce, Google Apps, applications like that. And the way we think about the definition of cloud is from an application context. The on-demand use of a shared application across a multi-tenant architecture. So using a same code base across multiple customers, but on on-demand basis. And when I think about more generally cloud computing, I think about it the same way for servers or storage as well. So the ability to provision and use on-demand virtualized resources at any level of the stack. And I think one of the interesting things that people mention but don't really focus on is that it's a significant technology trend, but it's also a big business model and budgeting shift for IT as well.
Absolutely.
So how IT has spent money in the past, it's been budgets driven primarily by CapEx or capital expenditures, upfront spend on licenses or servers or storage. And really, you're transforming that to much more of a operational expense or a subscription basis, which a lot of the IT organizations we talk to, that's as big of a struggle from a management perspective as some of the technology is. So it's very, very interesting.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Scott, that's something that I'm curious about too. I mean, when it comes to who's in charge and who makes that final decision on the spend, is it tricky because it's a different model too? I mean, do you run into that?
Yeah, absolutely, and we see shifts occurring in how that's happening as well. If you look at the SaaS industry and how that really got hold and grew in the market, it was really vendors selling to business users around IT effectively.
Okay.
The value proposition is the benefit is that you as a business user could swipe the credit card and go, and you didn't need to get IT involved. And what we're finding now is that it's like any business technology where business users start, the initial adoption wave, and there reaches a point where IT needs to get involved to help manage the chaos that's being created. So that's part of the pendulum we see going on in SaaS right now. And in terms of what we do at Conformity, it's really focused on that. It's helping IT get their arms around the SaaS applications and users that are proliferating across their organizations. So, as you see 8, 10, 12 or more SaaS applications being deployed, IT needs a way to centrally manage users and access across all of those different applications. And they need to be managed in a fundamentally different way from your traditional on-premise applications. So we really help IT centralize that, streamline it, make it easier, and make it more attractive, frankly, for them to adopt on-demand and SaaS applications.
Okay. So Scott, on a practical level then, how would you suggest that larger enterprises especially start to approach the purchase of cloud-based management solutions?
Yeah, I think they have to realize that, from an overall compliance governance management point of view, it's one of these things where, the cloud changes everything, the cloud changes nothing in some respects. So from a compliance standpoint, organizational responsibilities are exactly the same. So when IT looks at how it's going to manage and enforce policy across SaaS applications, it has the same responsibility as it does with on-premise. So I think they need to understand that eyes wide open going in, taking a look at SaaS applications, that they need to think about how they're going to manage these in their infrastructure in a way that allows them to align it with their policies, but at the same time continues to give the business users the flexibility that they want and needs, and makes the SaaS model so attractive to them.
Okay. And Brett, quickly, on your side too, with Rackspace, how would you recommend, or how do you approach it when someone first comes to you to say, we think we need the cloud? What do you say back to them?
So we really try to look at what business problems they're trying to solve, because
which is really what it should always go back to, right?
Yeah, the cloud is big and broad, as you said, and so people want things like email that integrates with their BlackBerries and their iPhones, and so we want to find out what their problems are, and then do we have the right solution for it, either directly or through our partners that we set up and work with, so that we can deliver whole solutions to customers. Because at the end of the day,
right,
they're coming to a service provider or solution provider like us to solve the entire problem for them, not tell them, well, we can solve this half, and you'll need to go find somebody else to solve this other half on your own.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor quickly here. We have Vertacor, vertacor.com.
Yep.
Great sponsor for us. Bring it up on screen here. So, is your cloud hosting provider letting you down? Take a look at managed private cloud solutions from Vertacor. They're more secure, more reliable, more redundant than other providers. A managed private cloud solution can easily replace your current IT infrastructure and eliminate IT pains. For instance, completely avoid the cost and hassle of buying and maintaining IT equipment and software, deliver 100% uptime to end users, configure and deploy computing resources in just minutes. With Vertacor, your private cloud is hosted in the most advanced and secure data center on the planet, uses only best-in-class hardware and software, and gives you access to virtually unlimited bandwidth. Vertacor's team of experts monitor and maintain your private cloud 24/7, 365, freeing your internal staff to concentrate on supporting only your applications and projects that can help grow your company. Vertacor. And actually, you can also follow them on Twitter, @Vertacor.
Yep, and vertacor.com.
Vertacor.com.
We're going to be using them, actually, for some stuff we're doing with the This Weekend Network fairly soon.
Excellent.
So, yeah, they've been really responsive, really great. So
okay. So a lot of the same messaging here with Vertacor. I would like to step in briefly here, since we've got Matt in studio, and talk a little bit about this notion of, well, music in the cloud. We do have two Austin-based cloud companies here on the show with us. So, of course, I'm alluding to South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Because a huge topic of discussion leading up to South by, which is coming around the corner in about 2 weeks or so, is this whole notion toward the move to cloud-based music. So, we have Apple making the iPod a success by changing people's perception of music from a product to a service, a single song to download that you want, as needed, as opposed to a CD. And then now it's shifting again. We're downloading so much music that we're running out of storage, too. And the cloud is promising to be this place where we can safely keep our music and hopefully at some point be able to easily access it from anywhere on any device. Matt, I just wanted to throw this out there at you. Do you think, based on your CultureJam's major relationships with all of these different record labels, do you see a shift in discussions with them about moving more to the cloud?
I think it's this big horizon of music on the cloud, and really a lot of people are sitting and waiting to see who the major players, what moves they do, and everyone's really watching Apple to see what the acquisition of Lala means. I think what it does mean is having your iTunes library in the cloud.
What is Lala actually? For
yes,
people who
let's
don't
make sure
know?
everyone knows what Lala is.
Lala was this fantastic service, and they still are a fantastic service. They are a streaming music destination site. They had this really unique model where you could stream songs once for free, and then I believe it was 10 cents a stream after that. Or you could pay 10 cents and you could stream it in perpetuity. Or you could purchase the song for as low as 89 cents to 99 cents. So it was kind of iTunes with a streaming component. And it was very interesting, and they did a fantastic job of building this, this cloud-based structure for streaming music and streaming it quickly and on demand. And so I think that's why iTunes acquired them, is they built the infrastructure for that on-demand iTunes environment. And it'll be really interesting to see where Steve and his Jobs and his team take it, because, you know, they've already got this fantastic store, and with this cloud-based, you know, streaming destination site, we'll see where it goes. And I really think it's gonna sort of put your whole music collection on the cloud, and hopefully it'll be sort of omnipresent one day.
Isn't Rhapsody sort of doing something like that, where you basically do a subscription service and then you stream? I remember I was using it for a while, but I've used it for like a year or two.
There's Rhapsody, and then obviously we have Google coming back with a response there. There is talk that they're looking to acquire Catch Media, which is similar. You know, obviously they were looking to Lala as well, but Apple obviously trumped them on that. But yeah, Google is now looking at Catch Media, which is also an LA-based cloud music service company. So, you know, we've got these two major players that are all looking to cloud music, and just curious to see where that's going to go. I mean, what do you think, guys? You know, what? Let's start with Brett. Brett, have you heard talk of cloud music, and is anyone approaching you, or are you working with anyone in cloud music?
So we're focused on providing the infrastructure. So for a number of folks out there, we have encoding partners that do both video and audio encoding, and a number of music and media-related companies host their infrastructures with Rackspace. I can't really share specific names,
of course,
of folks, but yeah, definitely a lot of interest from that, and there's a lot of growth. I think we're going to see music and video both explode on the internet over the next 10 years as bandwidth continues to get faster and cheaper and available in more areas.
So in general terms, without naming names, would you say that the volume of music providers doing things in the cloud has increased? I don't know if you can answer that question or not, but.
Yeah, the music providers are definitely going more online, and we're going to consume from services like Lala and Rhapsody and Pandora, and so I think that and iHeartRadio and all of these streaming services is the way everyone's going to consume music a decade from now.
Excellent. And Scott, what do you think? I mean, here you are in Austin. What are you hearing? Is there word on the street from people, you know, that it's going to be the year of music in the cloud? I mean, what's the take on Conformity side?
Yeah, I think generally I would agree that, you know, I think there will be an explosion in the cloud with both music and video. At Conformity, we don't see we don't get exposure to a ton of the trend and activity around that, as we're focused a little bit more on and helping enterprises manage cloud applications. But, you know, in terms of what we see and hear here in Austin, it's very, very consistent that you know, with what I think the other guys have said here, that you know, there's an explosion of music and video on the web, and continue to you know, expect that to grow further going forward. So.
Excellent. Well, I think it's about time for some Mark Laughlin group. Mark Laughlin group.
Mark Laughlin.
Tongue twister.
From Santa Monica, Mark Laughlin
Group, the American original.
Yes, as usual, I'm very proud of my opening. It's very awesome.
All for you, Mark.
Issue 1.
Oh no, here we go.
What is Apple building? According to Data Center Knowledge, Apple is building a $1 billion data center. It is 500,000 square feet, nearly 5 times the size of Apple's facility in Newark, New Jersey. There are many theories about what they're building. In fact, I believe our spy cameras have captured the facility. We put that up on the screen. There it is.
Dun, dun, dun.
What is that? The spy satellite of Mahalo and this show have captured this. Anyway, so question, what is it? Is it for video, cloud-based music, or something else? I ask you, Eleanor.
I say it looks like my grandparents' backyard, and it looks like they're growing a bunch of corn and stuff if you look at it from that view. But I'm from Maine, so I have to go by what I've seen there. So I think it's corn.
I think it's corn, okay. And your view on the matter?
I'm probably not going to say corn, but I think they're trying to take my iPod and my iTunes and all the movies that I've downloaded on iTunes and put it in their data center so I can grab it from wherever I am, wherever I'm going. That's kind of where I think. I think one day I'm going to jump in my car and turn on an iTunes application in my car stereo and be able to get all of my music right there and potentially watch a DVD for the kids in the back.
So you think it's basically for media? It's a big media
delivery
center.
I think so. I think they want to house and distribute your media.
Okay.
Real quick, in the chat room, Scott Simcoe says Area 51.
Yeah, well, not so much. All right, let's go to our remotes. Let's see, Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's. I agree. I think it's a personal media library in the cloud that you can access anywhere from any device, and it's music, video, and photos, and anything that you want to store and have access to. So I believe it's a media library that Apple provide to users.
All right.
Finally, Brett.
I'm going to avoid guessing at what they're up to next because they're usually very good at surprising us. So.
That's a good point.
They are indeed. Well, there's another theory which says that they're actually getting into the cloud business. And they may come and compete with you guys and basically become a provider as well. So
I think more than anything, what it says, if you go back to that image, is on the first show we talked about this notion of the cloud and everything's in these pink fluffy clouds. It's not true. There's still a physical place where all of this stuff has to go, case in point.
Yeah, there's always a data center.
And even though the rest of us can access things through the cloud, it still has to sit somewhere. So I think more than anything, that's the key point here.
Okay. Fair enough. Issue number 2. In February of 2009, Salesforce.com chairman and CEO Mark Benioff boasted that Salesforce.com was the very first billion-dollar cloud computing company. The company announced in 2009 the year-end revenue of $1.07 billion, which was a 44% increase from 2008. Question: is Salesforce the very first billion-dollar cloud computing company? I ask you, Matt. Matt Cannon.
What about Amazon? Hasn't Amazon had?
Yeah. Well, see, this is the debatable point. This is about the slushiness of the word cloud.
Right.
Exactly.
And the cloud washing that we heard from.
Cloud washing.
I mean, if you've got multiple data centers, can anyone call themselves a cloud?
This is a good question. I mean, so a lot of people would say that it depends whether you think Salesforce.com is a cloud computing company or not.
Right.
So I don't know. What's your view on it, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what that definition of cloud is again. I mean, is Yahoo the first cloud computing billion-dollar company back when they really start and monetize search and advertising on the internet? Was Google because they do host applications and have documents? And it really all depends, I think, on how you define cloud.
All right. Finally, I guess Scott.
Yeah, it clearly depends on the definition, but I'll give it to them. So,
yeah.
The way I think about it, it's shared, IT or compute resources, and they're just doing it at the application layer. And I think there's certainly more to come, but I'll give them the prize for being the first.
I would say they're the first billion-dollar SaaS company.
Absolutely.
If I were going to get
I think
specific.
That's fair. Absolutely. Salesforce.
Mark Benioff was also, really great about getting his face and the name out there and building that brand and really helping to explode SaaS.
Yeah.
On a larger scale.
Yeah, Salesforce is the one everyone points to. It's the first thing out of everyone's mouth when they talk about SaaS. So, all right, so we've taken care of that one. Issue number 3: transportability in the cloud. Last June, Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz started a new company hoping to speed enterprise adoption of cloud computing. the company officially launched as Makera. And they offer technology to quickly deploy apps and migrate them between cloud platforms. So in English, what this means, and I'm like, they basically encapsulate an application. I'm not going to do the voice because I have to explain this. So basically what, I can't do both. So what Makera does is they basically put, they call it a software capsule around the application. And the idea behind that is that you can move it from one cloud offering to another very easily. So you don't have to worry about the quirks of one cloud offering being different from another one. There's always, basically, like you say, there's always a data center, which means there's always physical hardware, different operating systems, different installations of various things. So at some point, you're not really living in a virtual universe. You're on a machine somewhere.
Yeah.
So and anytime you move something from an application from one machine to another, there's going to be differences. There's going to be little quirky things, different processors, different kernels, different versions of things that don't quite all mesh. So, so basically, the idea behind this is making it so that you don't have to worry about that, and reduces the risk of betting on one, one cloud offering. So
is this an application framework at which you build your application from start to finish within Makera environment?
You don't actually build the application in the Makera environment. You build it on top of it.
Okay.
So it's basically a layer of virtualization on top of their layer of virtualization.
Okay.
So the argument. So the question is, first of all, what I was going to ask is, how necessary is this?
Yeah.
Is this really a pain? Like, you guys actually would be the first ones I would ask, because you're an application provider.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got an application that brings in a lot of consumer data from these. We do these incentivized Twitter promotions for mainly music labels and entertainment companies, and we take in a lot of analytics of folks coming to the applications. Now, every person we talk about, the data security of all that analytic data that's coming through. And I could potentially say, hey, look, if you've got your own cloud computing provider, if you want it hosted on your own cloud, we can do that, and I can just easily port it from place to place. I honestly don't know how many enterprises are at that point where they're confidently running their own cloud computing services and confident with moving things around the cloud yet. But maybe. Okay. We sure aren't far from it.
Okay. Brett, what do you think?
I think that it's going to be necessary for the next few years as different cloud standards emerge and ways that the applications run sort of get standardized across the infrastructures. And I think everything that we can do to help ease adoption and ease transition from legacy data center design to cloud data center design will help everybody out. So really looking forward to tools like that being successful and helping bridge the gap, I guess, to get you off of where you were onto a cloud.
Brett, do you find that is this an objection that people have to the cloud? You find people are wary of the fact that they may not be able to move? Is this like a real objection, I guess, to a sale?
Yes, it is, because you're really, as an application provider, looking to be able to provide your service out to your end users, and if one partner that you're relying on for your infrastructure turns out not to be the partner you wanted, if you have to spend a year redesigning your application, it may mean the end of your company. So being able to have something that's open and standards-based and a way that you can move from one provider to another, you may need new geographic coverage. Like Rackspace's cloud today is only in North America. We have dedicated data centers globally, but you may need to use Amazon's cloud in Europe and Rackspace's cloud in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really quick, Brett, how far away do you think we are from standardization with the cloud?
I think, this is really early, as you said, that we've had our cloud online for a little more than a year now, and with this, it's going to take a number of years from here on forward. We're looking at some stats out there. There's a Jack of All Clouds blog, and they look at
Let's look that up.
Of the top 500,000 websites on the internet that are hosted on cloud platforms, and at this point, we're only at 1% of those cloud applications are on a cloud.
Wow,
so,
that's pretty telling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Only 1%?
That's
about around 5,000 out of the 500,000 have moved over. and they're roughly evenly split between Rackspace and Amazon, and then for 85% of that, and then the other clouds are very small at this point adoption-wise. So this is where I think until we have a large number of clouds out there that are getting adoption,
yep.
And we get to a point where we can really sit down and figure out how to make everybody interoperate and work together.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Scott, what do you weigh in on this? Do you really think transportability is a major pain point?
Yeah, I think it's something that's clearly visionary, and I think one of the interesting things to think about, and we get asked this a lot from a SaaS perspective, is where does industry consolidation go? So are you going to end up in a world where you have maybe 2 or 3 master brands for cloud platforms, or are you going to have a much more kind of heterogeneous landscape? And that's something we do a lot of thinking here about conformity just from a SaaS perspective. Because one of the things we believe is one of the value drivers of cloud, particularly on the application side, is the opportunity for organizations to really kind of leverage best of breed, given the fact that it's much more easy and easy to deploy SaaS applications, and they're much more flexible. So we believe it's a world where there will be heterogeneity, in which case transportability and portability is going to be very important. And I think the other dimension is as we've talked about, is the standards piece, and when does that come together? I think it does happen over time, standardizations both for SaaS and cloud, but we're not there yet. And I think the thing with standards is that effective standards only emerge after business problems have been solved, not before. And frankly, it's so early that a lot of these business problems haven't been effectively addressed yet, and yet to come. So I think it's ahead of its time, very, very promising, and a very interesting bet on the future of where cloud's going.
Okay, excellent. We actually have a comment from the chat room from Ewan Spence. He's saying that surely with standardization, the whole cloud becomes commodity and you lose vendor lock-in. So that's nice in an ivory tower way, but will commercial reality stop standardization? Who wants to jump in on that one? Okay, go ahead.
I'm happy to jump in here. I mean, we really don't think that lock-in is a good idea for the cloud providers. We're trying to be as open and standards-based as possible because we want to drive adoption and help this cloud transition. I mean, we can all try to have lock-in and fight over a proprietary, very small pie.
Right.
If we look at some just more broad industry numbers, there's 50 million servers running globally right now, somewhere in that ballpark. And even if you call cloud the infrastructure stuff that we're talking about, and SaaS, and all of these hosted internet services, you're looking at less than 10% of those servers are out there in a cloud platform or cloud deployment. So those other 90% of the servers, we want to get them to move over to cloud.
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, I think you need to have an open, standards-based approach so people aren't afraid.
So yeah, what you're saying then is by being open and following, just being standardized, then you're helping drive adoption in essence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. Anything else we want to do? I want to go on to our next issue.
I suppose we should.
I believe we should too.
Issue number 4. Are data center providers the real winners in cloud computing? Data center builders have been called the arms dealers to the cloud. At the end of the day, the cloud is nothing more than a data center somewhere on the ground, or Sealand, if you know where that is. You know what Sealand is? It's a platform off of Great Britain. They declare themselves an independent nation. And the thing that's interesting about that, yes, is that it's a big data center. So they serve, and they're connected to the internet, and they're basically like, we don't have to, all the gambling laws and all that, they don't apply to us. And
oh my.
Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so it's basically a data, I don't know, safe haven, if you will.
Not a vacation hotspot.
No, not really. That's not an old oil platform. Off the coast of Britain. So anyway. Equinix is reporting hefty increases in demand for their services. In every gold rush, the person who sells the shovels is the one certain to make a profit. Question: are data center providers the real winners in this cloud meme? I ask you. Sorry.
Matt, what do you think?
I really don't know. I don't know the cost structure of building data centers or the vendors there. I can imagine it's going to be a pretty good business for them in the next 10 to 15 years, or over the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, just look at the size of that that data center that your spy drone from
our
the
spy camera.
Spy camera took. You know, that's a pretty massive thing. That looks like half the size of North Carolina.
Insane.
Okay, let's go to you, Brett. What do you think? Who's really the real winner in cloud computing here? Is it the data center?
So at the end of the day, the business IT folks are the real winners out of cloud because it simplifies their life and lets folks make more money on their products and spend more money on their products and less on the infrastructure. The data center providers have been building data centers for as long as we've had computers. They're just building large facilities now for a few people instead of small facilities for thousands of people. So as computing grows, the data center providers win. So I think they want to see us all streaming our music and doing more things in a digital world, and that's how the data center builders win.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I'm wondering whether other people, not Rackspace, are building cloud offerings on your infrastructure. So therefore, you win. You know, whether they go with your cloud offering or someone else's that's built on your infrastructure. Can you tell me whether anyone's doing another cloud offering on your hardware?
So yeah, we have a reseller program where people can build offerings on top of our services, and there are a number of platform as a service providers that run on Rackspace and many of the other infrastructure clouds out there as well. So, I mean, there's absolutely, as you continue to move all the way up through to the software as a service sort of food chain there, as we provide services down deeper in the stack, other people are going to build on top of that and provide a service out to their users.
Is cloud computing better for you guys, or are you just forced to go along with it because it's the hot meme right now? Is it? I'm just wondering, like, is it for someone like you? Would you prefer, in your heart of hearts, looking at your business bottom line, that people be in data centers or that they use the cloud?
I think the growth of hosting overall, and if cloud helps grow hosting, that helps our business.
Yep.
I think that we try to service the customer needs through either dedicated hosting or cloud hosting, and both of just general growth of hosting is going to help, and cloud is helping grow the hosting sector right now.
Okay. My guess is that he can't answer that. Yeah. But I mean, just to be completely fair, and you've been very gracious about answering a lot of questions that are difficult for someone in a public company to answer. My guess is that right now it's not as profitable as they would like, but it will get there because they need to figure out all the virtualization and basically work the kinks out of it so that it is a lot more profitable.
And as we've said, it's just so new.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. It's really so new. And so, Scott, what about you? Let's make sure we've pulled you into this too. Are data centers the actual winners here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's as a general rule with trends like this, it is the arms dealers that end up winning. But,
like that term, huh?
Yeah, but I do agree. At the end of the day, it's really the users and the customers that
Thank you.
end up
I would
winning.
agree with you.
They get more innovation, they get faster innovation at a lower cost, and whether that's someone accessing music in the cloud or an enterprise deploying applications or servers or storage in the cloud are the ones that that benefit and particularly on the business side spend more of their time focusing on adding value to the business. So I think it's the end users at the end of the day that are really going to be the winners.
And Scott, to follow up on that, I mean, from a startup point of view, it's something that I demand now. It's in high demand from my side. And I can only imagine that from every other startup founder and CEO who's trying to get things going, but get things going at a cost-effective price point. And it really becomes a matter of incubating these companies up to the point that maybe they need to buy into a data center, that they've got such a behemoth of a company and a user base that it makes sense for them to build those own data centers. But
yeah,
it's a farm league, maybe.
Yeah. No, and here at Conformity, we founded the company basically about 3 years ago and built it from the cloud initially. And when you think about what we had to spend to get the business up and running, basically out of a world-class data center, just it's a mere fraction of what it would have cost 3, 5, 10 years ago. So the impact of cloud on startups, I think, really can't be emphasized enough in terms of what you can do with relatively kind of limited investment or bootstrapping your business.
One final point on that. In the chat room, we have Webb Collins saying that data centers will do well, but the biggest returns will be had by the new breakthrough applications and entrepreneurs that take advantage of what the cloud and data centers enable. So.
Yeah, so it really lowers the barrier to entry for.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's the big consensus so far.
Yeah.
Where the sweet spot of the cloud is at the low to mid end at this point.
Oh yeah. Don't know where we would be without it.
Yeah.
Okay, final story over here, Mark.
Issue number 5. And this is kind of old, but I thought it was good anyway. Oracle CEO Larry Ellison's rant. Cloud is fashion. All right, this is from 2008, but it's interesting nonetheless. I should have brought it to the first show because it's awesome. So Larry Ellison, the Oracle CEO, has this to say. This is a quote. The interesting thing about cloud computing is that we've redefined cloud computing to include everything that we already do. I can't think of anything that isn't cloud computing with all these announcements. The computer industry is the only industry that is more fashion-driven than women's fashion. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I have no idea what anyone is talking about. What is it? It's complete gibberish. It's insane. When is this idiocy going to stop? We'll make cloud computing announcements. I'm not going to fight this thing, but I don't understand what we would do differently in the light of the cloud. Question, is Ellison right? What do you think, Amanda?
I think Ellison likes to hear himself talk sometimes.
Well, there's that. There's that. Brett, what do you think?
I think he's got a valid point to a certain extent. Is that I mean, Oracle's been providing services for applications over networks for as long as they've been around. I mean, they didn't start as a mainframe company, so with the database doesn't do much by itself. So it all depends again. Yeah, where and how do you define cloud? And I think that's part of Larry's rant there is. Yeah, what exactly is it, and where do we draw the lines? I mean, Oracle's had their on-demand services here. They've got a huge cloud data center in Austin that they've had for a number of years, powering their Oracle on-demand offering. Does that make them a cloud company?
Yeah, well, definitions.
I think people are cloud companies if they want to be cloud companies, it seems like these days. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think there's some truth in what he's saying. I think there certainly is a lot of hype and smoke around cloud and SaaS, but at the same time, he was also an early investor in NetSuite and Salesforce, so clearly Larry saw something in that model that was interesting to him. So I think his overall point that things in the IT and computer industry tend to get overhyped is valid, but I think there is some substance there that is different that needs to get recognized as well.
Cool. Okay.
Fair enough.
I guess we'll go to the news next.
Yeah, we're getting down to the news.
I'm gonna do a little bit out of order.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if we have noise. I guess we don't have sound there.
We lost
Oh
that.
well. All right. So basically, I'm going to skip around a little bit, so we're not going to do them in the same order. So this is just hot off the press. Right before we came in here, I saw this. 3Tera acquired by CA. So IT software giant CA has acquired cloud computing startup 3Tera. No word on what the terms were, but basically, the main product is a thing called AppLogic. So AppLogic, I'm going to read exactly what their press release said. AppLogic treats the entire N-tier application as a single logical entity that can be copied, instantiated, configured, started, stopped, cloned, exported, imported, etc. What that means in English.
I was going to say, what language are you speaking right now?
All right, so basically, 3Tera's got something they call a grid operating system.
Okay.
All right, so it rests on top of the AppLogic distributed kernel. So memory management is distributed, the logic connections, the schedulers, storage, all that stuff. Now here's the interesting, and this is another one of these companies that's very similar to the Andreessen company.
Right.
So this seems to be an old trend going on here.
Yeah.
Where these distributed operating or virtualization, they call them distributed operating systems, they're becoming more popular. They're becoming necessary, it seems, or helpful. And this may be part of increasing the profitability for people like Rackspace and other providers.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing, though. Is I remember I was at a company 10, 15 years ago, and they basically did a distributed operating system, and they had they got really hung up on distributed garbage collection, basically reclaiming memory bits that weren't used by the operating system across multiple machines, and the problem became basically intractable. It was basically so complex They just like mud. They just basically got caught in a mud pit on that, and it basically almost killed the company. So,
oh, wow.
Anyway, so the question I have is, first of all, are these things really necessary? I guess to the providers, are you using things like 3Tera and the Andreessen? I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. Makara, thank you. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll go to Brett first.
So we've built our infrastructure at a layer below where those would run. And I think this comes back to just kind of the enterprise and the adoption of the Java virtual machine and the Java app server is that enterprises want to write their applications in a manner that they can move them from one hardware infrastructure to another, one operating system infrastructure to another. So that way they don't end up, if all of a sudden next week one processor vendor announces a magic chip that's 1 million times faster than CPUs today and costs $1. If you had written your app in some way that you couldn't move to take advantage of that, now you're at a horrible disadvantage to everybody that can move over. So I think for users and consumers of our infrastructure services, doing something like this or writing your application on top of something that's portable is a huge advantage for you.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Scott?
Yeah, I think certainly from a provider standpoint, there's advantages to that model and to the portability. You know, here at Conformity, it's not something that we've had to do or had to think about yet. I think that's something that down the road from a portability standpoint we'll have to consider. But you know, it's almost like we were discussing before. It's a issue set, it's a problem set that's coming down the road. But you know, certainly something that we haven't had to you know, address as we build out our business and technology stack.
On a larger scale, Mark, too, I'm more interested also in, does this acquisition show that there are going to be more acquisitions of specific cloud computing companies?
I would say the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
It seems to be a very hot space right now. Mm-hmm. People are making tools. It seems like the speed with which people are making tools for these sorts of things is increasing. Mm-hmm. And you have people like Andreessen doing it. I mean, Andreessen's always been interested in the cloud. I mean, that Loud Cloud is, you know, the company.
Oh, Loud Cloud, I've heard about that.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And actually, he's one of the first people that, you know, I guess probably coined. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't coin the phrase, but like, I'm sure that a lot of people drew from that.
That's actually a good trivia question. Who, you know, coined the term?
Well, we talked a little bit about this last time. It's
a little
bit ambiguous, but nonetheless, yeah. If anyone knows, I mean, we would love to know.
I mean, the fact that it's only 10% of these 50 million servers globally are cloud-based, are cloud systems. That sounds like a good market to be building businesses in right now.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So next one. This comes from the Wall Street Journal.
Actually, Katie.
Mossberg.
I believe Katie wrote this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misattributed. Anyway, so it's about a company called PogoPlug. Sorry, the product is called PogoPlug. The company is called Cloud Engines. Mm-hmm. And basically what they make is a device. It's a storage device. And it sits in your house, not in a data center somewhere. And it's like this cute little, I saw the picture of it.
It's
the picture
pink.
Is pink. Yeah.
Really?
The pink little, it looks like it's very...
It's actually pink.
Just what I want in my house.
So
Amanda will like it.
Amanda will love it, but I don't.
Not this Amanda,
my
Amanda,
sister
his
and co-founder.
Oh, got it. Okay. But anyway, the idea is, from what I read, is that basically it sits on your desktop, and all of you store your movies, your music, Microsoft Word documents, PDFs on this. Huh. And so basically, you have your own little personal cloud in your house, and then you can access that from the web from other places. So it's sort of like an inverted cloud, which is kind of strange. And yeah, so basically the title of the article was "Get Your Storage Out of the Cloud." So by creating like a desktop cloud. So question: is this really stretching the term cloud to like an almost ridiculous level by applying it to what sounds to me like to be like the inverse of what I think of as the cloud?
Well, I think personally it almost addresses the whole public-private hybrid thing in a weird way. I mean, what do you think, Brett? I know that you guys have quite a bit to say about that at Rackspace.
Yeah, so we actually have a partner that makes a product similar to that called the Cloud Plug. And what this does is it's the next generation of file server for small to medium business, or for the PogoPlug one's really targeted towards consumers. And Rackspace really tries to stay with stuff that's a little bit more business targeted.
Right.
So instead of having a bunch of disks inside of the file server at your house or your office, you just have the plug there, and then all the data is really stored out in the cloud. And I think that's why they call these cloud devices. It's just, it gives you the file server front end and a web interface to browse and map, and allows you to infinitely store all of your music. Like we were saying earlier, we keep moving all this stuff online, it's getting bigger, and at some point you end up with a daisy chain of hard drives sitting around plugged into your machine in your house.
So do you think Pogo Plug and services like that for the general consumer will help enable or help drive the whole music in the cloud initiative then?
So I think it helped drive people converting content to digital and keeping content and utilizing it. I mean, if it goes all the way up to a cloud provider, like if Apple made iTunes online with everything, then you wouldn't necessarily need to store your media on your own device. But this is the public-private thing, like you're saying, is do we trust somebody else to keep our music collection for us, or do we want our own copy of it?
I think that would be really, really big. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not buying it. So I don't know if I'd really call them cloud per se. It does seem to me
isn't that called a hard drive?
I'm the person to be the judge on that, but at the end of the day, it does seem like more of a remote kind of file access mechanism for people to get access to music and videos and their data versus something that's really a cloud offering at the end of the day.
Yeah, check it out. I have a desktop cloud right here. This is my cloud right here.
Like, we got a keyboard.
Nice. Got a keyboard and a screen. Anyway. I guess you chimed in, so we got everyone. Okay, so next story: how much are cloud providers making? And is the best way to talk about it revenue per server or per customer? And I know there may not be some people here that can participate in this one, but I think it's an important question to talk about nonetheless. So
general,
for those of you who need to bow out, that's perfectly okay. So just some really. So I guess the first question is what is the measurement? Like how do you actually quantify these? So there's really two ways to do it: revenue per server or revenue per customer. I'll speak for the Rackspace guest Brett. Rackspace very clearly believes that revenue per server is the way to go, and that's basically the measurement. But everyone else is basically leaning on per customer. I guess, do you have a view on this? Or?
Well, what works? Is it working for you? You're a Rackspace customer.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely working for us, and I think it will, at least in the short term. It'll scale nicely with our growth as well. So, I can only look at it in my own sort of isolated state. But yeah, I think revenue per. I'm happy with what I'm paying for my services, and they seem to be scaling at a rate that is effective and cost effective for us. So yeah, I mean that's fine if they attach it to me. I wouldn't know how much real usage I'm using on that server.
Yeah, well, so from the article I was reading, it says that for Rackspace, it's been an upward trend in terms of revenue per server, and so they've basically gone from 2,899 to 2,991 per server, but the net revenue per cloud customer has declined, which would be a cost savings actually to the customer. So, that's actually, I think, a good thing for both parties.
In the on-demand model, it's like certain days we're using a lot more bandwidth than others, and so I can imagine that instead of them selling certain slices to startups, because especially startups always think they're going to use more than they are, right? So they're renting these big slices and they're only using a portion of them. But you're locking out that you've dedicated that slice now to that user. In the cloud model, you can put a lot more people on that bus than you would otherwise in a sort of slice model.
Yeah. Okay.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the revenue per customer, the overall discussion of metrics and who's making money in the cloud is a pretty interesting one. Obviously, we're focused a little bit more on the cloud application space, and I think the revenue per customer is a more natural metric. But I think we're still seeing, given the fact that the bigger scheme of things is still a relatively nascent space, that you do have vendors out there that are quote unquote buying share and buying customers. And that's why I think it's tough to look at the revenue per customer and the trend to draw any conclusions from that, given the fact you do have people out there discounting and aggressively trying to displace legacy on-premise systems. So I think SaaS, what we're seeing now is that they're pricing to win deals, and what we're hearing from the major SaaS vendors that for the first time SaaS is winning the majority of new deals in the enterprise from an application standpoint. So I think it's a bit early to say who's quote unquote making money off the revenue per customer or server metric right now.
Yeah. Okay. So just a couple numbers here from the same article because these are pretty interesting. And somebody brought up in the chat room as well. Rackspace did 56 million in cloud revenue, so nothing having to do with their other business, just purely cloud in 2009. Amazon Web Services is really hard to tell. The article also did call out that Rackspace has been unusually forthcoming about about their revenues and their metrics, which is really awesome because we can actually
they're open in multiple ways, right, Brett?
So that's awesome.
We're very transparent because we want to be open business partners. With the folks we work with, and we want to let our customers know how we're doing because you want to know that you're working with a solid and stable partner when you're going to trust your business, your entire business. In a lot of cases, people's whole company today is online, and they want to make sure they're working with someone that they know has a solid footing.
Yeah, by the way, TSTOLIKER wants credit for that these 6 months, so good job.
See, we pay attention to our chat room.
Yes, we do. So, so the other number I wanted to throw out there, and this is, we don't know if this is true or not because it's very difficult. Amazon on its balance sheet includes Amazon Web Services under other. And who knows what else? Who else knows what else is in there? But basically, that figure is 735 million. So we know it's not. So what we can tell from that is it's not higher than 735 million.
Correct.
Somewhere below that line, probably a lot below that line.
Yeah,
would be my guess. So,
wonder what else is in other.
Yeah, I mean, it's
kind of like food labels. When you see that thing, byproduct of, other. Make sure.
Yeah. So, but who knows? But anyway, what was really clear from the article is there really are they're really two big providers right now.
Right.
Are definitely Amazon and Rackspace. The next one is Savvis Cloud, and they basically reporting 7.4 million in 2009. So definitely a distant third compared to the other two.
Yeah, I know. We used Amazon as well. Earlier on, we do these Twitter promotions where you can tweet to download a song, and the first one we did was for Travis Barker and GJM. We released a mixtape, and it was the first time we ever did it, and we put the download on the same server as the application, and it crashed right away. So the first thing we did was put it on the Amazon cloud, and it was a huge, probably 70 megabyte file. And I think the bill I got after 25,000 people downloaded it was $200. So they're not, they're not charging that much. So I can imagine that their revenues are pretty low. Maybe that's because they're really trying to get user adoption and get as many people using the service before they start raising prices.
Okay.
Interesting. One other thing to think of too is you have that side of it where you maybe have something that's cheaper, but what about the services and support side?
Yeah, we don't really talk a lot about that. It's
we haven't.
More like just iron versus iron.
Yeah.
Or iron versus cloud.
Exactly.
And we've forgotten a lot of times about the humans that actually have to operate the iron. Yeah.
And Brett, I think you probably have something to say about that, don't you?
Yeah, this is really why Rackspace is focused on open standards and open technology, because our core as a company is around what we call fanatical support, and we're believe that you can have technology parity, and our goal at the end of the day is to really be a trusted partner and go above and beyond to take care of our customers, and that's how we want to be viewed, and that's the way we want to compete in the market.
Right. We just got a note in the chat room from the same person, TST.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it.
I don't know how to say your name, but it's
Soliker.
EC2 is super expensive, like $400 a month for support.
For support.
For support.
Yeah, actually, I can attest to that. We used them in the past, and they do have, it does cost money.
Travis Stoliker. Did I say that right, Travis?
There we go. Travis, that's the person in the chat room, by the way.
In the chat room.
Who are watching this after the fact and don't know what's going on in the chat room right now. So.
And wait, we have to pull Scott into
this
too. What about services and support? Is that is that a key factor here too, Scott? What do you think about the pricing with that?
Yeah, certainly it is for us, and we have, we end up offering a variety of options for customers depending on what their needs and business requirements are. But yeah, I think it's certainly important, and particularly for customers on the enterprise side that are making the transition to the cloud and to cloud applications, and a lot of it is new to them, particularly on the IT side. I think support is a critical part of the equation here. That I think is going to have an impact as well as to how far and how fast cloud and SaaS goes in the enterprise and what the adoption rate looks like. I think it's a key thing, key ingredient in the mix here.
Great. Well, I think we're about on the hour mark here. So what I would love to do is get any final parting thoughts from each of you. Scott, is there anything going on with Conformity that you'd like people to know about before we close?
No, just very exciting times here. We're kind of high growth mode here at Conformity. I think the migration to cloud applications in the cloud is happening faster than even we anticipated, and we're having a great time working with our customers, helping them get ahead of the curve from a manageability standpoint. Also great to get our 2 inches of snow in Austin yesterday, which we didn't talk about. But,
yeah, wow. Snow in Austin. Who would have thought about that?
Crazy.
There was actually a snowman in my yard yesterday, which I couldn't believe when I got
How long
home.
did you take to melt?
Can you do us a favor and plow all that before we get there?
Yeah, before we get there for South by. I don't want to bring a hat and scarf. Anyway, thank you so much, Scott. Scott Bills with Conformity. Matt, we have Matt McNaughton over here. So any parting words with CultureJam?
Yeah, so CultureJam, we just launched a new product called PromoJam, and it's a SaaS model content management system for building these Twitter promotions from the ground up, and it's a really powerful system and allows you to create a multitude of different Twitter promotions in a plug-and-play way, and then track everything that's coming through there. And yeah, we've been working with a lot of really great music artists like Pearl Jam and Rihanna, and we're just getting into other worlds, and we're working with the Pittsburgh Penguins and MGM Films. We're doing Hot Tub Time Machine. Ooh. So yeah, we're really excited for 2010, and we hope to take these social media applications in many different places.
Along with help from Rackspace.
And as we grow, yeah, we'll be leaning heavily on the cloud servers.
And with that, Brett Pyatt, what do you have for any final thoughts from Rackspace?
So really, if you're out there in the IT world and you haven't experimented with cloud or looked at it yet, spend some time. 15 minutes, you can have servers up and running. You can have a platform account created for $1 on your credit card. You can get up and going. And
literally $1 on your credit card.
Yeah, $0.015 an hour is our entry-level cloud server. So yeah, you could mess around all day for less than the price of a cup of coffee, and see how it can impact and change what you're doing today and how you can make your company better and more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And of course, cannot forget our show sponsor, Verticore. Thank you so much. Make sure you check them out, verticore.com. and at Verticore on Twitter. So, and of course to my co-host, my lovely co-host over here, Mark Jeffrey.
You're the lovely one.
So thank you everyone for joining us here on the second episode of This Week in Cloud Computing. I am your host, Amanda Coulong, and see you next week, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time.